Greeting wizards who practice the dark arts of JavaScript. I'm known as Parashuram, and I come to you from the far, far away land of the Pacific Northwest, where the deep blue ocean kisses the great Cascadia Mountains. And I come here to deliver a message. Oh, wait, what? Winter is coming? No. It is coming, but it's not coming for a very long time. That was not the message I came to deliver. I came to talk to you guys about JavaScript, and JavaScript typically with like a bunch of other things. Back there in Seattle, I work at this company that's probably a little more into windows than walls. Windows of all shapes and sizes, windows that you love, windows that you hate, windows that sometimes don't shut and just crash. But that's where I work. And if you guessed, I do work for Microsoft. And at Microsoft, I am a principal program manager working on developer tools with JavaScript. More recently, I've been working with JavaScript tools for React and React Native. And I'm kind of passionate about JavaScript tools, and that's why I thought I'll come over and talk about. The whole DevTool space is pretty interesting. Right from when, in May 1995, when JavaScript was invented, the DevTool space has been interesting. When it all started, there was not a lot of DevTools. The errors were cryptic. It was hard to debug. As you guys say in Bangalore, Solpa adjust madi. That's exactly what the story was. And we are clever programmers, aren't we? So the first thing we did, started using started using alert boxes and displaying all of the log messages and doing watches. To be honest, that was not the best situation. If you had to characterize it, I'd say we were bringing in not just a knife to a gunfight, but like a banana to a gunfight. It was horrible. It was messy. Anyway, so that's what was happening, and we are all clever programmers, aren't we? We survived that era, and we started becoming good at writing dev tools. The first one that I remember using with JavaScript is this dev tool called Venkman. Venkman is the same Ghostbusters Dr. Venkman. I'm not even sure how many of you are old enough to remember that, or how many of you were even born when Venkman was around. The thing that a lot of people do know and do understand is this other very popular tool called Firebug. Firebug, in a way, revolutionized the way you think and you debug JavaScript. Fast forward it all the way till today, and not only can you debug JavaScript, you have a bunch of other tools, things like live reload, and you write in TypeScript and ES6, and that does transpilation. You have hot module replacement. You have browser sync. You have Redux replay, a whole bunch of those things. And as a result, JavaScript has proliferated into a bunch of other contexts. They don't just run on the browser. And as Francesca was saying, it runs on systems like Node, systems like Internet of Things. You write command line applications with it. You put stuff on the mobile phone, and all of this runs with JavaScript, not because JavaScript is a fast language. It's probably because JavaScript has excellent developer tools. I was going to pick JavaScript as an ecosystem, and I was going to go in and try to figure out what the ecosystem did and how did it evolve. But given that JavaScript has almost 10, 15 years of history, it was hard. So rather than picking JavaScript, I thought, let me pick React Native, and that might be a representative of what happened with the JavaScript tooling. Effectively, this is basically what my title of the talk is. It's called Supercharged Developer Tools with React Native. Now, if the words do not do justice to the title, maybe this image will. And to all the Madrasis in the audience, hey guys, this is hero introduction, no whistle or clapper. Adi, good. So, nice. So, that's what it is. And if you're thinking of what React Native really is, React Native is a way to develop iOS and Android applications on your mobile phone. The good thing about React, unlike Cordova or Ionic or any of them, is that the app you write actually has native UI controls. So the list views, the buttons, they're actually native and look and feel as if they were a part of the real mobile phone. On the other hand, you still use React, and all the code that you write is written in React. And this React or this JavaScript code runs in a virtual machine called JSC. JavaScript core, which is what comes pre-bundled with your iOS devices. It's similar to what Francesca was talking about in terms of V8. JSC is yet another JavaScript virtual machine. And the way this entire structure works is JSC starts sending instructions to the native part of the world, and then you get like events from the native to JavaScript. And this interaction ensures that it's not like a full screen web view. This ensures that it's like super performant. Now, I also believe that Sanket showed you a pretty good introduction of what React Native is. So I'm probably not going to go into every single aspect of React Native. But when I was talking to you guys yesterday, I did hear that a lot of you had not really done a lot of React Native. There was some React experience, but not React Native. So let's just take a quick summary of what React is and React Native is. So here's a very simple React class. In this, you have like a state, which is a timer. You have a render method, and then you just mount it on the DOM. This is like a pure, super simple React application. It basically displays something on the website. Now, the philosophy of React Native is, hey, why should I worry about divs, and why should I worry about the DOM, right? I mean, if you look at this code, this is where my DOM coupling comes in. What if, instead of calling it DOM, I called it a view? Now, view could be a div on your browser. It could be a native UI element on the Android or the iOS device. And that's basically what React Native does. It kind of replaces all of your DOM instances with something that's native or mobile specific. And then rather than mounting on top of a DOM node, you mount it inside an application. And that's the beauty of React Native. And that effectively says that if you know React, you're almost there. You're more than 90% React Native developer. And writing a mobile app is not that hard. Now, in fact, the whole development process is also very similar to what you do with React. Just like in React, you have Webpack and Rollup and Gulp and Grunt, you have a packager. And this packager, you just start it up on your command line, on your dev machine. And this packager basically takes up all the source code that you have, bundles them together, and sends it to the JavaScript core. And the JavaScript core basically interprets it and sends instructions to the native UI land telling, hey, go draw a button from this location to this location. Or go draw a view from this location to the other location. Now, because this is JavaScript, it also leads to a whole bunch of interesting scenarios. I mean, you know how if you write Android code like in Java, or if you write Objective-C, even for a small change, you have to recompile the whole thing? With React Native, and because this is all React, React already does live reload. You get the exact same benefits of React in React Native. You don't have to recompile your entire application. You just do get live reload out of the box. Debugging is also very, very similar. Now, all you have to do is, hey, it's a JavaScript engine. Why not attach directly to it, right? There is a slight problem there. The way JSC is compiled for Android, you really can't attach a remote debugger. And that's a problem. Now, I see that a lot of people here haven't gotten the intensity of the problem. So let me try to invoke the Amitabh Bachchan voice and try to make it a little more serious. It's like saying, अब मेरे पास native UI है, मेरे पास React है, मेरे पास bugs है, तुम्हारे पास क्या है? And if you ask a web developer, you know what they typically would say? They'd say, मेरे पास Chrome है. And that's the power of like the whole React story. So, you know what? JavaScript runs in JSC. Where else does JavaScript run? On Chrome, right? What if, instead of running during the debug mode, you switch from running JavaScript on the JavaScript core on the phone to Chrome through the packager? And this is how React Native debugging works. I mean, effectively, I've told you what is in terms of React Native at this point of time. And what does Chrome have? Chrome has developer tools. You will be able to use the exact same developer tools with Chrome, like as if you're building a website, and you will be able to debug your mobile phone applications. Okay, JSC runs JavaScript. Chrome runs JavaScript. What else runs JavaScript? Node.js, right? What if we replace Chrome with Node.js? Now that's interesting, and I'm not replacing it because I'm at Microsoft and I have to replace Chrome because I don't like Chrome, but effectively, you can replace it with Node. And Node has developer tools, and you can attach developer tools with Node, right? Again, what if? Now, Node has V8. That's still kind of Chrome-ish. What if you replace Node? Again, I'm not saying this because I'm at Microsoft, but what if you replace node with node chakra? You would get the exact same story. And I mean, jokes apart, I'm actually doing this for a reason, and I'll show it to you in a demo. But jokes apart, what if you replace node with node chakra, which you actually can? And once you do this, the capability that you get is something that's called time travel debugging. Time travel debugging is effectively the ability to not just step forward with your statements, but step back or do reverse continue. And I'll probably show you a demo. It's demo time, which means let's play to the demo guards and see if we can send our code backwards. Before we do that, let's actually start with a simpler demo so that I don't fail right away. So what I've done is I didn't want to rely on NPM in a conference network, so I already went to my command line, and I did npm install React Native CLI, and then I said React Native init application name. And what it gives me is this folder structure. Effectively, it has a bunch of JavaScript files. It has an iOS folder and an Android folder. And if you open, like, say, the Android folder, this is actually your native Android application. It has Gradle, it has things written in Java, it has all the scary type checking and all of that. We are not going to worry about that right now. What we are going to be interested in are the two entry points for my iOS application and for my Android application, which is this. And in this case, I do not want to write two separate code syntaxes or two separate files. So what I'm going to do is, in both of these, I'm going to create just an app folder and refer to this simple file called counter.js. And what does counter.js do? It displays a counter and has a plus and minus, and you click it, it keeps incrementing or decrementing. Now, what you can do here is, by default, let me minimize this guy. So I've already also taken the liberty to run it because I didn't want my demo to fail yet. So here's how the application looks. And all of these buttons and screens that you see are actually native screens. In fact, if you were to open up Android Studio and open up the UI manager, you would be able to see the hierarchy of all of these as native elements. Like, this basically is your com.android.text area. This basically is your Android button, so on and so forth. On iOS, it's the UI button and UI text and all of that. The app itself is super simple. I'm trying to learn to count, so that's what it does. Now, remember I told you about debugging, right? So let me show you what that looks like. Typically, what you would do is you would shake your phone, or shortcut is Command D, and you would say debug JS remotely. What this is going to do is open up a browser, and if you go to developer tools, you can open up index.android or index.ios.js. It has source maps and all of that supported, and you can start putting breakpoints here. And you as a web developer are not going to know if it's web debugging or JavaScript debugging. In fact, React Native also has, so if you have the React extension, looks like I uninstalled it, but if you have the React DevTools, you will be able to do DOM inspection of your native application. I mean, it's that close to developing a JavaScript application. Now, let me close this guy. Let me stop debugging, close this guy, and let me enable this thing called hot reloading. So what I can do is, it's going to load up the whole thing again. Eventually, it's 60, 70%. But here's what I'm going to be able to do. I can, without even changing my application, I will be able to change colors and styles and all of that without having to reset my state. And that's something that's super unique to React Native, primarily because it's written on the JavaScript stack trace. So I can do this. And if I go a little bit downstairs and say my background color needs to be, save it. Did you see the background color actually change? So let me replace this. So the counter value is 10 right now. And I'm going to say my background color needs to be, let's say, A, B, C, D, E, F. I save it. My counter doesn't reset. The color just changed. And that's not something that you typically do in a native application. Thanks to React Native, it is possible. And the final thing I was talking about was remote debugging, or time travel debugging, right? So what you can do is, I've already set up time travel debugging. Effectively, what I've said in my launch.json is, let me just minimize this guy. And what I've said is, instead of using the regular V8 node, just use Node Chakra. That's all the change I had to do. And Node Chakra automatically comes with time travel debugging. So if I hit F5, it's going to start up my debugger, and it's going to hit the first breakpoint, and I'm going to just run through this. But now when I'm hitting this other breakpoint, apart from the ability to step forward or step into or step out, I can now step back in time, which basically means I hit this, and I was in this frame, and I was able to go back to this function. And that's actually super cool. You can actually jump back and forth between statements, which makes debugging so much easier. And because it's React Native, I didn't have to change a thing. I just changed my debugging engine or node engine, and it worked. And that was remote debugging. So going back to the slides, I'm sure you guys want to see this GIF again, but going back to the slides, it all looked like magic, but it's not really magic. Let's take a closer look at the JavaScript VM that Chakra does. So in a React Native application, you have a state, right? And in the state, you say this counter is 7 or something like that. If you take it, if you zoom out a little bit more, what you see is the entire JavaScript context. And Node Chakra has this ability to take a snapshot of this context. And the reason we do a snapshot is because in JavaScript, if you run an instruction, there is no undo, really. I mean, you can't like run an instruction and then unrun it, right? So instead of doing it that way, it actually takes a snapshot, runs all the way back to the snapshot, and continues. So let me show you an example. Right? In this case, it's going to run like a bunch of instructions. There might be external events like reading from a file system or network, which is non-deterministic. So it's going to save that. It's going to continue running my code, and this is where my state changes from 7 to 8. And then it finishes running. So at this point of time, my instruction pointer is at this level. Now, what if I want to go back? I cannot go back. I can't undo unset state in React, right? What I can do, however, is go all the way back to a snapshot, run my instruction, like restore that snapshot, run my instructions. If there's an external event, I do not want to respond to the external event, primarily because it could be, from a click, it could be like a double tap or something like that. So I'm not going to run that. I'm just going to rerun what I already saved. And then I'm going to come back to this state and pause. And that gives you the illusion of going back in time. And this whole mechanism is actually so fast that people are running this on production Node.js application. Now, if it's OK to run it on production Node.js, why not use it for debugging, right? This, in short, is basically the whole time travel debugging part of the world. Now, that's good. We have just started debugging, and we've started developing our React Native application. But with websites, what we do is we don't have the concept of an app store. We do not have to wait for 24 hours or 3 weeks and get rejected and stuff. With React Native, you have the exact same capabilities. What you can do is, once you have submitted the app to the App Store, because it is JavaScript, the next time you have an update, you could send it to your packager, and rather than distributing it directly to React Native, put it up on the cloud. I mean, everything goes on the cloud these days, right? So why not? The next time the app is opened, it can check if there's an update. It can download that JavaScript file and do an eval of that JavaScript to get the new bundle running. I mean, this is pretty much what websites do. This is not possible in native applications, and this is one of the biggest advantages of using React Native today. This effective thing is live reloading or instantly updating your apps. And this is super important if you have critical bug fixes. So if you have a bug fix, for example, all you do is upload that bug fix. It gets downloaded the next time, and you do not have to wait 24 hours for an update that you want to fix. You have another update, you can continue doing that. But here's the other interesting scenario. What if your third part of the code was done on a Friday evening, you were totally drunk, and you messed up something? What you can do is you can undo the change, because guess what? We already had the previous code update, right? So you can do that. You can basically undo and redo the whole React Native application and even start versioning your application. And at this point of time, I'm sure it's almost like writing a website, right? I mean, it doesn't really feel like you're writing a real native application. So it's basically combining the whole web world and combining the whole native world. Now, that's the second tool that I showed you. And now you've done your due diligence, and you effectively have come here. And you've tried to develop an app that you like, and you've decided to distribute it to the App Store. But then you realize that there are multiple devices. Even when Sanket was showing his demos, there were like a bunch of questions about how do you do media queries? How do you test on multiple devices? It's hard. I mean, if you imagine a world where you've shipped your code, and then your boss, who's probably personified as Gabbar Singh, And to my Tamil friends who do not know who Gabbar Singh is, it's that same movie, where you say, "Na paatha kadesi English padam Sholay," that Sholay thing, that's this movie. So Gabbar Singh, if he's your boss, he'll be like, "Arey o Samba, kitne phones the?" You'll be like, "There were 1 million phones. You didn't test on any of them, right?" So what do? Well, you can say, "Dude, why this Kolavari? Hold on." What you can tell him is, there is a way in React Native to test it on multiple devices. And let me show you that. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to stop the PowerPoint slides. And I have an Android phone and an iOS phone. I have an iPad and an iOS 7 phone. Wow, that's super long. That's probably iOS 8.5 or something. Like, it's tiny on the screen. It's super long there. Let me just reload this application. I'm going to disable hot reloading. I'm going to reload this application. And let's see, I'm going to also change it to something a little more complicated. So I'm going to change what my app is. Reload, and there you go. OK, so I have like a menu app kind of a thing. And I have it running on 2 devices. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start up a simple socket server. So this is a simple WebSocket server. And I'll show you what it can do, really. So rather than speaking through it, let me just reload these applications. Oops. What was that? Hold on. Sorry, give me a minute. Looks like the internet is not very good, so. Sorry, give me 1 minute. What is the file called? Live coding on stage, something had to break, right? Reload. OK. Really? OK, so I have two devices right now. Let me just ensure that I'm restarting my server properly. I love it when I have to debug code on stage. It's worse than a whiteboard interview, where there's like one person asking you to like write code on a whiteboard. This is like, what, 400 people looking at how I code. So just a reference for my future interviewers, this is not how I write code. Anyway, so reload. And what I can do is, I will effectively pick up multiple devices, and rather than having to go manually test it, what I can do is, I can click on one device, and the other device is going to follow. We have the same concept on the web called browser sync. React and React Native is written in such a way that you can actually enable browser sync kind of a scenario on your devices. And these devices don't even have to be connected on your like local network or anything. They can just be devices that you have in your hand. I mean, look at this, for example, like, right? So if you see my mouse, I'm only moving it on the iPhone 7, and the iPad is responding to it. And that's purely because of the way React Native's event system is written. The way it works, again, I mean, it's easy to show demos, but the way it's really written is, it's because of React's event system. So if you remove the black box, which is JavaScript core, expand it and see what's inside, the way events are handled effectively is, you have a plugin registry. You have like something that does a response to the plugins, and then it eventually goes through an event emitter to your on-event handler or your on-press handler. What I did was, I wanted to replicate the events, right? So I basically wrote my own event responder, and rather than doing anything, it broadcasts this event using the WebSocket server to the other devices. And this basically is the way I'm able to replicate the whole event on one device across multiple devices. And that makes it super interesting. Now, why am I showing you all these demos? But before I get there, just another thing. I also noticed that there are a ton of people here who are not Indians. I know I did put like a bunch of movie clips. So, like, folks, that's not a representation of Indian Bollywood or Indian movies. If you want to really get the sense of what Indian movies are like, I'd recommend watching movies like Ram Gopal Varma's Aag, or like there's this these awesome heroes like Mithun Chakravarti and Govinda. You should watch their 1990s movie. Or there's Balayya, or there's this great Tamil actor called T. Ranjadhar. He probably is even better than both Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan in Kung Fu. So you should watch those movies. That's a representation. I just wanted to put that away, but anyway. So the reason why I'm talking to you guys about all of this is, if you noticed, through this journey, we have had problems. We have, like a typical Indian movie, we have had ups and downs, we have had twists and all of that. Eventually, the hero survives, right? Effectively, what I'm trying to see is the system itself has a ton of disadvantages. The script is completely flawed. Like an Indian movie, the script is bakwas, to be honest. However, it's the actors or us who make the entire ecosystem good. And I think, no, all said and done, despite JavaScript's flaws, it is us who come up with these really creative and random hacks that help us ensure that React Native is a great movie. It's a box office blockbuster. Now, the future. Well, to be honest, the future is dark. It's up to you guys to have that awesome idea, to have that next generation idea on how a dev tool can be. Should it be time travel debugging? Should it be space travel debugging? I don't know. And that's the power that you guys have. And that's why it's up to you to shape what the future looks like. That's pretty much all I had. Thank you for bearing with listening to all the rambling that I had to do. I think I still have I did not want to get between you and your food, so I wanted to finish early. It's almost 12 or something. So let's take a couple of questions, and I think we should be good. Hey, before you do the question, sorry, is it okay if you say your name out aloud? I'm here to meet people so that I want to know who you are. So you can say out your name, but if you're shy, you can call yourself, say, James Bond, or even like Sanskari James Bond, like Bahubali or something, that's fine. Just say what your name is.
All right, my name is Ungmating Chaiza. So there was one problem we had recently with React Native, in that when we enabled remote debug, and we were running it through Chrome, it was working fine. But when we disabled that, it just wouldn't run in the emulator. It's just not getting compiled. And it had something to do with typed arrays in JavaScript. So do you know, stuffs like that don't work? I mean, maybe it works on Chrome and does not work on React Native, like just using the whatever comes with React Native. Like, any checklist that we should be aware of? Because that was like a pain, and we figured it out the hard way. So any idea about that?
So I think the crux of the question there is, when you're debugging, you're running it in Chrome. But when you're not, you're running it in JSC. And to be honest, JSC and V8 are totally two different virtual machines. Their capabilities are completely different. And at this point, and that's also the reason why the Facebook guys effectively compiled JSC for Android also. I mean, technically speaking, like native script, they could have just picked up V8 for Android and done JSC for iOS. The reason they didn't do it is because they wanted consistency. And I think the short answer is, unfortunately, no, there's no simple way to do it, because Chrome does expose a whole bunch of things. That's also the reason why when you're debugging, the debug context is not the DOM, but a web worker. That way, the number of things you can use is small, but yes, typed array is a problem, and there is no direct answer for that. And I think the best way to do it is stop debugging, run it, you will crash. Good thing about React Native crashes is it gives you JavaScript stack trace.
Right.
And as a result of that, you'll figure out where exactly the problem is.
Cool, thanks.
Hello, yeah, this is Dheeraj from this side. Nice talk. I just wanted to know about one thing. You said that we can go back in the time with using Node Chakra. So you said that with asynchronous things and file IOs, you take a snapshot of it, some things. What if, and this is not just nudging you, but we have a specific use case for this particular scenario. We work on random numbers quite a bit. So what if we rerun the application for that snapshot, and inside, during that time, the random number changes? Do we take snapshot of that too?
So the question basically is about determinism, functional programming, reasonable JavaScript. That's pretty much what it is. And the way snapshotting works is the thing that you snapshot is all static or deterministic states. Any external stimuli like file reading, random numbers, all of them are logged. So if you do maths.random, the next time the snapshot is run, it will not call the real maths.random. It's going to call, because it's an external story, it's going to pick up what was stored in the log event. So it's not really going to be maths.random, and that's the only way you can make snapshot work.
Hi, this is Hussein from MicroStar. So this is probably a very basic question. There is something called activity life cycle in Android. So I'm not a, React developer or a native React developer, but I would really like to work on that after your talk. It was very good. So how is activity life cycle handled in the native React applications? Because it is very annoying in Android, like you have to handle a lot of things.
Hey Hussein, nice to meet you. So I think the story or the question boils down to there is an activity lifecycle there's an activity lifecycle in Android.
Yeah.
React also has an activity lifecycle. It's basically component did mount, component will mount, etc. Right? So in case of React Android specifically, what shows up is a single activity. If you go modify your Java code, you can mess around with it, but technically if you're using React native, you don't have to worry about it. Okay. If you're a React developer, you just think about component did mount, component will mount, etc., and that will take care of all of it. Now, if you have specific use cases where you want to use something like on resume or something like that, where you have like an intent coming in, you can write native code, and that's one of the biggest advantages of React Native. Like, if React Native ever stops short, you have this native escape hatch. You can always go write native code, and that's kind of what the Facebook app does, right? Like the Facebook app is a real native app, but parts of the screen are React Native. And that way you have this escape hatch and you can go do that. So depending on what works for you, if you think that Android activity lifecycle is hard, just use React. That'll just work as fine. If React is not powerful enough, and if you think that you really, really need to go access the punch through to the native layer, React Native lets you do that too. And that's basically the possibilities, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about React Native.
Good to know. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bilal, and I would like to say a big thank you to you guys. You guys are doing some amazing work with development tools, and I've been using Code Push for more than a year, and it has been an amazing experience, and we were able to fix bugs on production, and we could get client off our back. So a big thank you for that.
Hey, thanks. I'm glad you guys liked it. As Steve Ballmer always said, developers, developers, developers.
Hi, this is Basavraj from Agrostar. So my question is, like, you said ki, we can deploy the code, like if anything breaks, and then we can revert that back. And the question is, like, do user has to update his app, or it's like without update we can do this?
The interesting thing is the user does not have to update his app. So the question again, just to repeat, how does the whole instant update work? So it works just like it would work on a website. So you can either have a hook where you say codepush.sync, or you can have a check when the app loads up and say, hey, is there a new version? And that's all you have to do. There is no need to reinstall the app, nothing like that. The app is, the thing is you just check it. If there's a new update, it's going to go to the server, fetch that update, apply it on your React Native application, and boom, you have a completely new version of the application.
So does this like replace everything that we currently have in the Android thing, that we have to update the app, things like this?
Yes, it's going to bring in world peace. I'm just kidding.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No. So to be honest, no, it's not going to bring world peace. But to answer your question, does it replace everything that Android does? So here's the thing. Apple Store specifically says that you should not be changing what your app does. So this is good just for fixing bugs. Do not completely, do not start with a real estate app and suddenly change it to Tinder. One, that's morally wrong. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, my parents are searching for houses. They will not be happy if it becomes a Tinder app. On the second hand, that violates the App Store policies. So it's good for, these kind of updates are good for critical and bug fixes. And it's okay to keep updating it. So it's like you do not have to wait for 24 hours, and that's the whole point.
Hello, hi Parashuram. This is Zaheen. So my question is regarding the debugging point of Node Chakra. So just like you mentioned with live reloading, you can instantly live reload whatever the code you want to change, and the state will remain the same. So with the Node Chakra, you can also do the undo and redo. You can go forward in time and backward as well. So what happens in Node.js when you're debugging and suddenly you have a breakpoint, when you come onto that breakpoint and you want to change something. But that change will only affect once you have restarted the server. So will it happen exactly with the same node chakra?
So the first thing is, while debugging on Node Chakra, there is no concept of a server. The only concept is of the JavaScript context that you're running in. And this is also the reason why you cannot do time travel debugging inside the browser. Because inside the browser, you have your DOM, which is a completely separate engine, and you have your JavaScript virtual machine, which has JavaScript context. So they are two completely separate things. And the best way to think about it is, yes, you can replace variables. So you know how in Chrome you put a debug breakpoint, and then you go replace the variables? That you can do. But if you do that, what's going to happen is all the previous snapshots are going to go stale. So you will not. So once you make the change, you'll not be able to go back past that time. It's almost philosophical, right? Like if you go back in time and change something, there might be a time travel paradox.
Exactly.
React Native will let you create time travel paradoxes. God, I even said that. Good.
Yeah, thanks.
Hello, Parashuram. This is Rinku from Learnist. So what exactly I wanted to ask is, you have given example of bug fixes, right? So we can push code to cloud and it will get updated. So what if there is new APK versions? I mean, for example, I have APK version 1 in production, and I have some native dependency that is updated, and I have given version 2. So say I'll be pushing the code of version 2 also to the cloud. So what will happen exactly? I mean, even the version 2, whatever code is there in cloud, will it get updated to version 1?
That's a very good question. The question is about what really gets, so if you look at it, it's about what gets updated. So remember, also to the point that the other gentleman asked, your native code does not get updated using code push. It's only the JavaScript part of the world. So if you have an API, so imagine that you have some native API that has v1 and v2. With code push, you can specify that all of these updates have to apply only for v1 of my native code or only for v2 of my native code. In fact, the good folks at Airbnb have written this module that says it's kind of like feature detection in a browser, where it says, hey, if I have this native API level, if I have this method in the native API, go fetch that code. Otherwise, don't fetch it. Okay. And native APIs, you will have to still go through the store, unfortunately. It's compiled code, right?
And what if it is JavaScript? I mean, if we want the JavaScript code of, say, version 2 to be there in version 1, so can we do that?
Yes. If there's no change in your native version, you can have like any number of JavaScript versions. In fact, we have actually had customers who have submitted once to the App Store and for over a year have released like 250 versions. And that works perfectly. So, in fact, the fun thing is you can not only do that, you can also do A/B testing. You can release version 2A and 2B to like set of users and do a whole bunch of A/B testing. Something again that's possible only with React Native, not with real native code.
So you are saying instead of giving full rollout, we can just...
you can do A/B testing, you can do partial rollout, you can roll it. Today, code push lets you roll it out to 10% of the users. Test if the JavaScript code is good, and then roll it out to 100%. Effectively, the goal there is, from the tooling perspective, in the web, we have always been doing that. Facebook rolls it out to 10% of the people and then to 100%. Why not do that on the mobile side of the world, right? That's effectively what we are bringing, and that's where the innovation of tooling comes in.
And we have a framework where what we do is we upload an app to App Store, say version 2, and we just want only developer to test it, tester to test it. It shouldn't go to the production to all the users. So is it possible to do that?
It is. Microsoft, being the big Microsoft company, has acquired this company called Hockey App. I'm not sure if you've heard of Hockey App. It's similar to what TestFlight is. And Hockey App is the way to do beta distribution to your testers only. Code Push is now a part of the whole big thing that also Hockey App is a part of. So Code Push and Hockey App can work very well together. So you technically can do what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Sneha. So actually, when you do a code push, how would iOS take it? Because we have this review cycle that it goes through, right? So if I change something in the UI and it doesn't follow the style guides or something, how does it work?
So again, as I said, the caveat there is do not convert your real estate app into a Tinder app. But having said that, so here's the code push story, right? So the native UI is not going to change. When the JavaScript code loads, what it's going to do is it's going to go, rather than loading the file that it has on your local device, it's going to check if there's a new file on the cloud. If there is, it's going to download that, and because the new code has all that logic to create a different colored button or to create like a different UI, that works from here, and this guy drives all of it at the top. And that's how it works on iOS also.
So Apple doesn't stop like from doing it or something?
Maybe we should. So I can see that your friends sitting around you are probably looking to head outside for lunch, and they're probably going to come back and they'll be like, Uta Aita, and then they're going to rub it into you. So let's take this offline, given that we are running out of time. But yes, it is possible to do.
Okay, thank you.
I think.
I mean, that's fine. If we want.
Hi, my name is Arun. So I wanted to ask you that as a developer, I have always wanted. So when I'm debugging my code in Chrome Developer Tools, I kind of always wish that I could go back and from a specific debug point. And the only way you could go back was to reload your page, put the debugger point at some earlier place, and debug from there. So I wanted to ask you, is this something very specific to React Native, or can I do this type of debugging in Chakra directly in a normal JavaScript code?
So yes, the short answer is yes, it's specific to React Native. The reason being, in case of React Native, your entire virtual DOM is stored inside the JavaScript memory. So effectively, there's just one virtual machine that you're dealing with. The moment you take it to a website, you have the whole DOM infrastructure, which is either like the Blink engine or the web, or like the Trident engine or stuff, and then you have your JavaScript. So keeping those two state machines in sync is hard, and that's why you will not be able to do it inside inside the browser. But because this is React Native and because it has like virtual DOM and stuff, it's possible on React Native. So unfortunately, we do not have an answer. In fact, the whole time travel debugging thing is actually a PhD thesis. It's done by Microsoft Research. And those guys have been wanting to implement it in the DOM. It's not trivial. Because the way React Native is the way React Native is, we could hack it together with minimal changes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, guys, thank you very much.
And I think I'll also be hanging out, having food. So if you have any other questions, or like me, you're socially awkward, just come over, we can chat, or tweet to me, that's also fine.